Okay, so let's start. The main issue of this election, or one of the main issues that I've picked out, is whether people will trust this election result. Because Donald Trump has said that the mail ballots are fraudulent, and that means that I think a lot of Republicans think that the vote's going to be rigged, against them. Then Democrats believe that Trump probably won't accept the result if it goes down to the mail ballot vote. So as an American, are you are you, are you worried about the result? Are you worried that the result won't be fair and accurate, or do you think that you got faith in the electoral system?
No matter who wins the election, I think my concern isn't so much of the integrity of the system as much as it is whoever wins, there's going to be civil unrest. And we're not going to know for a few days. And so, what I think is going to happen is Trump will win election night. And then in the days after that, the mail-in ballots are going to be counted because some states can't even open them until election day, or some can open them but they can't count them until election day. So he might win, election night, and then over the next 48 or 72 hours we might learn that that's not the case. So, but as far as trusting the system, yeah, there's isolated incidences here and there. For example, like in California, the Republicans in California set up mail or ballot drop boxes, but they were not like affiliated with the state at all. So, and they're in a lot of trouble there now, and there's a lot of questions right now about what happens to those ballots. Because my understanding is you have to turn in your ballot. A third party cannot collect it, right? So, and then there's been like Trump has like really called attention to like some, I believe they're military ballots that were found on the side of the road and just kind of cast away. But again, these are isolated incidences. My primary concern, other than civil unrest, would be like take a state like Georgia, for example. Most of the population in Georgia lives in Atlanta, right? Atlanta's very heavily liberal, right? But all the outlying places in Georgia, everything else in Georgia is very conservative. So it doesn't seem right to me, but this has been going on for years, but it doesn't seem right to me that a city the size of Atlanta could swing the entire vote of an entire state, right? Because we have an electoral college, right? So the majority wins in the state, and then they go on and cast their ballot for whomever. So that's kind of my thinking on that question.
So you're traditionally a Republican. I remember having conversations with you years ago about you being a Republican and me being
Yeah.
British. We don't, we're all always leaning Democrat in England, in the UK. But you've switched, so you're switching to voting Democrat this time. What's your reason for switching?
Yeah, so well, technically, I left the Republican Party in 2016. I lost all faith in them then. So officially now I am considered an independent, and I could definitely vote either way for a major party, Democrat or Republican. But the reason for voting Democrat this year is because, and I've already voted too, is because their entire Republican Party has sold themselves out to Trump. Whether or not they agree with him, whether or not they like the things he says, they've sold. Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, and he is completely void of any character. And yeah, like under his policies, my 401k has done well. That's a huge talking point of his. And yeah, I'm doing well financially, and the economy's, minus COVID, was doing pretty well. But like, I'm not prepared to put character or morality, or rather put money in the economy ahead of moral character. That's just not right. So that's kind of my reason for switching over. At this point, it's not even, I read over Biden's platform, but I really don't care about his politics at this point. I just want someone that I can be proud of. And right now, the world is laughing at us. Literally, in the UK, you probably saw in the news, what was it, like a year or two ago, where like the Trudeau and the British PM and I forget a couple other world leaders were literally laughing at Trump. So, and that's embarrassing. So, I don't want to be laughed at by the world. I want a president I can be proud of, I want a country I can be proud of. Um, and so, that's kind of the reason for switching over. At this point, it's not about the politics, it's about the leadership, and it's about what direction do we want to go in this country.
So Joe Biden is labeled Donald Trump as xenophobic, and I think the general thought from more liberal people is that Donald Trump is a racist. Do you think he is a racist, and do you think that he has multiplied divisions between the races in America and minorities?
Well, I mean, he had the opportunity to denounce white supremacy at the first debate, and that seemed to be a difficult topic for him. So I think that speaks for itself. I think he'd like you to think that he's not racist, because, sure, he has a few minority cabinet members, but I often question myself, how much is that for appearance and how much of it is genuine. But certainly he likes to say he's he's done more for Black people since Abraham Lincoln. And I don't know about that. He can't even acknowledge systemic racism. So you have to ask yourself, is that valid? Which it's not. I don't think he's done anything to ease race relations in this country. Um, I mean, he can't even denounce, like I said, white supremacy, and he can't even acknowledge thoughtfully systemic racism. So yes, I think he might not realize he's racist, but he absolutely is.
And did you vote for Donald Trump in 2016?
No, I voted, which I wish that I didn't. I voted third party, so I voted for the Libertarian candidate.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, I could not get on board with, like a lot of Americans, we couldn't get on board with Hillary Clinton. A lot of people weren't on board for Donald Trump. It was kind of like, do you want to die by 1,000 knives or by a gunshot?
Hmm.
So
And are there any other policies that matter to you? Because Donald Trump is pro banning abortion. He's generally lenient on handguns and assault rifles. Are they policies that interest you, or are you? Is it? I mean, you mentioned before that it's essentially down to the fact that you're embarrassed by Donald Trump, which is why you're not going to vote for Republican Party. But is there policies that he has that you like?
there was one policy he had, and he has failed to do anything about it. But there's one policy he liked that I agreed with in 2016, which was term limits. He wanted to see that become law because we have people that they've been in Congress for years and years, and he wanted to put in place a term limit. So I agreed with that policy, but as far as guns, no, we've seen no action there, and that's a whole other interview in and of itself. Um, so I would love to see the government do something about the gun issue in this country. I can't really think of another country in the world where every year you see multiple mass casualty incidents because of gun violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really know. I really don't like Donald Trump so much. So I've never actually read his platform because it's just enough to see and on TV and read about it and read his tweets. But I'm about 90% sure he's pro-life, and
Yeah.
I just don't agree with that. It's not the government's. It's inherently the government's duty to regulate behavior, but that is a very fine line. I mean, if you think about it, we regulate the speed at which you can drive on a freeway. Um, that's for safety, but it's not the government's right to tell a woman what she can or cannot do with her body. And that's a deeply personal decision, too. So I would be very much in favor of a pro-choice president.
And one of the other things I want to talk about is you're a gay man.
Yeah, I live with my
How does
partner.
how does that affect your politics though? Because I think for me being a British person over here, being gay is really not a problem. In
Mhm.
America, certainly being Georgia as well. I mean, obviously I've lived there, so I know that some people aren't very tolerant and some are. But does that affect your voting, the way you think when you vote? Because I think typically the Democrats are more open
Mhm.
to, gay rights than Republicans, but obviously you've historically voted Republican. So how does your sexuality impact your political ideologies?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. That's something I've been giving a lot of thought to over, the last 4 years. But I'll say this. Trump is not, as much as he would like to say, I've done a lot for the gays. I hate that expression. Don't say I've done a lot. Let the record speak for itself. And please don't call us the gays. Just say the LGBT community. And it just sounds so much more proper and it sounds so much more respectful. But my comment on that would be this. We have a judge that's been nominated for the Supreme Court, and her position is religious freedoms. So what that means is she feels she needs to protect the rights of religious people. Being gay isn't a religion, but it is a right, and the Supreme Court has ruled on it. So I would be deeply concerned about my right to still marry with an additional conservative or marry my partner with a conservative justice on the bench. Um, and also that the Amy Barrett, she just happens to be, I forget what the term is called, but she literally looks at the Constitution as it was when it was written instead of a living document. And I don't think the founding fathers ever could have envisioned America taking off the way it has and becoming a global superpower the way it has. And the Constitution, as important as it is, it doesn't get everything right. And it should be interpreted, through the lens of 2020. So she's going to be looking at that. Let me protect the religious rights, and I could fall, between the cracks there and no longer be able to marry. So, and also another reason I ultimately left the Republican Party. They're not the party of limited government anymore. And it's not the same party. Okay, of 350 million people, it sucks that last year or last election we got Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and in this election we got Joe Biden and we got Donald Trump again. I mean, there were so many people in this year's primary that were very well qualified to be president. Pete Buttigieg was my pick. He had a robust platform. He was young, he had fresh thinking, and he just happened to be gay. That didn't matter to me, but that was cool. There could have been a first gentleman in the White House, and it sucks that every year we come down every election cycle. It's well, I don't like him, and I don't like him or her. So, but I guess I gotta pick one because one is worse than the other. So just American politics stink.